Yes, it's going to be a political discussion, so it should be interesting. I need about 5 to 10 minutes to actually put my thoughts together as to how I'm going to frame this, because in today's climate, especially in 2020, it's really easy to offend people, which I'm personally not easily offended. I don't ever recall being offended by somebody in regards to politics. But I have not been in the realm of politics, so to speak, in terms of discussing politics since roughly 2008. Like when Obama was running versus Romney, I saw a very, very divisive future in terms of social media. But before I touch up on that, I would like to address why I personally stepped away. What I just mentioned, of course, is one of the biggest reasons I stepped away, and I saw it coming. I don't know if it's just the way my mind works. I'm very analytical, and I deal with absolutes. And I was able to put two and two together at the time and step away from, discussing politics, particularly on the internet. And I didn't see it going anywhere well, and it sure as hell hasn't. You're talking over the course of 12 years. We're nearing, roughly 12 years. But first, I want to address a particular discussion I actually had yesterday with a friend of mine who just so happens to be black. And we both agreed on many things. We disagreed on many things. We had a very civil discussion in regards to politics, and that's very rare nowadays. And I could only count maybe on my one hand 3, maybe 4 people I could have a civilized conversation with about politics. Being that, guess what? I disagree with certain things. I don't care what side you're on. I'm not a pro-Trump supporter. I'm not a pro-Biden supporter. I'm not left. I'm not right. I'm not even independent at this point. I'm just apolitical due to the political climate that we are living in today. And this doesn't just apply to the US. This applies to the entire world. But I suppose I'll start this off with the discussion I had yesterday, which was actually in regards to civil discourse, which I actually posted something on my personal social media, my Facebook, kind of like it kind of was a experiment, a social experiment, just to see how people would react to it. And essentially I said, civil discourse is dead and our country is screwed. Though I do stand by that, it was interesting to see the comments pouring in. There were roughly like 60 some odd comments, but it really did prove my point. But before I get into the true points as to why I don't discuss politics, I want to bring up a few conversations that I've had just over the last few months with people that are near and dear to me. Some are friends, some are family members. And why I believe civil discourse is truly dead in our country, and where I foresee our country going. Not just even our country. I could see many countries going down the same path, just not to the extreme that I believe the U.S. will go down over the coming years, which concerns me. Not so much for myself, I'll be fine, but for my son and future generations, my grandsons, grandchildren, rather. But yeah, several months back, I want to say 3, 4 months back, I had a Zoom conversation with a friend of mine, a longtime childhood friend of mine. For the record, I'm not naming any names because I don't feel that that's prevalent to this conversation. But when, we were just kind of shooting the shit, so to speak. Granted, it's COVID season, it's COVID year. And the idea of, the Black Lives Matter movement, this was just, shortly after the George Floyd incident, which I actually did cover personally on my personal channel and my personal, social media pages. As far as, interviewing a former Cook County prosecutor who's now a criminal defense attorney, and we dissected all the information that we had at the time on the case against the officers involved. And I mean, it was something that this particular person, he still has not acknowledged that he's watched it, though, albeit I did ask him to several times just to get his opinion on it. And I was actually very much in favor, not in favor of George Floyd, because, I mean, obviously he didn't deserve to die. Nobody deserves to die that way. But the cop, primarily Officer Chauvin, he was extremely reckless in what he did. He did attribute to George Floyd's death, and I do believe he will be convicted of second-degree manslaughter. Now, Tao, the other officer, who's also a veteran of the force, though he is charged with aiding and abetting, which technically means he could be charged with any given crime that Officer Chauvin was. I don't see him getting convicted of second-degree murder, perhaps manslaughter, because he is a veteran of the force. He should have known better. He should have intervened. And that's actually a statute within that, not just that city, but that state where all of that occurred. The other two were literally on the 4th day of the job. Quite frankly, I don't see them getting convicted of anything. But it really did stir up like all these emotions, which created division on both sides, left and right. And when I was having this conversation with my friend, and this was via Zoom, so we're actually seeing one another and talking to one another, he started, and these are talking points I've heard regurgitated many, many times, since these initial instances of police brutality, and that was an instance of police brutality, was that if I'm not speaking out against it, my silence is complacency, and I'm actually actively supporting what took place. I absolutely disagree with that. I stay out of politics. I don't even think that should have been a political issue, but it was politicized, amongst many other things. Which leads me to the next conversation, which is actually with a family member that I had maybe a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, who supports Trump. Personally, I don't like Trump. I don't like Biden either. I can't stand either one of them. I think I do agree with quite a few Trump's policies and quite a few things that he's done, but yet I could also take into account certain things that I disagree with. But I can't explain that to Trump supporters because they jump right on me. I don't need to like the guy. I never voted for him. I won't vote for him this time around. I live in Illinois, like it freaking matters. I might actually make $100 based off a bet that Trump's going to win Illinois. Though I don't see him losing this election. I can't stand either one of these guys. But nonetheless, getting back on topic, the conversation was pretty funny. It was over the course of roughly 2 hours or so, if not closer to 3 hours. My whole argument with this particular family member in regards to Trump and why I don't see him fit to be president isn't so much based on his policies, but his candor. There's a certain, well, at least for me at least, there's a certain expectation of candor if you are going to be the leader of the free world, as we've come to know the President of the United States. He lacks any form of it. And I know that's actually how he was elected, by dropping that, respectful candor. That it's just, he lacks any form of it. And that's not really my biggest issue, and I'll get to that soon. But over the course of that long conversation, I asked this particular individual, this family member, please name me something that you disagree with when it comes to Trump. And the family member replied with his hair and his use of Twitter. Yeah, that's actually a true story. Now, the other day, hear me out, guys, because this does lead to my point. These are just examples of the few political conversations I've had that I've actually even entertained the idea of even having them. Though the first one that I mentioned was kind of forced on me, because I was just trying to have a conversation with an old friend who was trying to put, the BLM thing, and, despite the fact that, of course, Black Lives Matter. I support the concept or the message. I do not support the organization. I'll throw that right out there right now, especially over the recent months for various reasons. But that doesn't mean that I don't believe Black Lives Matter. But that's what the media that's what the media wants you to believe, that that's truly what they push. But it's perpetuated through social media. And that's really what I'm getting at here. And I'll get to that in a second after I reference this particular conversation that led me to make the post I made yesterday on my personal Facebook profile. It was, this was with a black individual, friend of mine, longtime friend of mine. Different than the first individual that aforementioned earlier in the conversation. Not that this is a conversation, I'm talking to an inanimate object. It started with the concept of white guilt, which this particular individual said was not political, which I completely disagree with. But I do agree with this particular individual in the terms that this particular individual actually referenced me, the original paper, or papers rather, that was written by I believe a sociology professor, referencing white guilt. But to think the idea behind white guilt has not been politicized, quite frankly, is just downright ignorant, because it is extremely politicized, and you'll see it all over the place. You may not see it on, mainstream media, but that doesn't mean it's not political. And once again, hear me out. Ultimately, we ended up getting into the discussion of my family lineage. I am a first-generation American. I grew up with a very diverse group of friends. I have a son who's biracial. My family, my immediate family, both my mom and my dad's side, migrated to the U.S. in the 70s from Poland. In Poland, we did not have slaves, or they did not have slaves. And we got into this conversation. It lasted a good 2 to 3 hours, and it was actually quite civil. And sometimes we could agree to disagree about certain things, but the idea that, every single white person should be due or should, pay reparations for the past of ancestors that we're not even related to is beyond me. And that's something, quite frankly, I can't imagine actually having this discussion with someone who is so far left. I mean, I could deal with the pro-right people, and I generally shut them down. But the people on the far left are far more radical, in my opinion. But when it comes down to the two parties, and quite frankly, that's all we have, there's been more and more division over the years. I've never seen so much division, not just in my lifetime, but I'm also an avid fan of history, especially world history, but American history. And I'm well aware of all of the bad shit that's been done in America. But guess what? We are doing worse shit today than ever before. And it's not just because of the politicians. It's because of the general citizen with their access to social media and just propagating narratives that they've been sold. Whether you're left or right, whether you like Trump or Biden, could give two shits. I don't like either one of them. But it's just the same regurgitated talking points over and over and over again. And that's the modern day propaganda. And my biggest issue with this is it's not just so divisive, it's dividing our country more so than probably ever before. Given, when you take statistics into account and you take population into account, I've never seen the country so divided. At least not in my lifetime or over the history of American history that I understand. And that's a big point of contention for me. That's an issue. And when I made the post yesterday saying that, civil discourse is dead, I meant it. But more so what I meant was this country is going to collapse. Not just economically, but for many reasons. And it really comes down to the fact that we are being pushed. For those of you who are out there, propagating, your political proponent, whether it's Biden or Trump, I could give two shits, but you are part of the problem as well. And it's not a matter of political beliefs or ideals anymore. This is exactly what I feared 12 some odd years ago, was that the political climate will turn this way. Instead of unifying our country. We are literally tearing each other apart. I've seen friends turn on friends, childhood friends turn on friends. The people that have known each other for 20 plus years, if not 30 plus years. And they simply won't, they're not friends anymore because of politics. I've seen family members turn on family members, even within my own family, because they don't adhere to the same political ideals. Guys, it's politics. Politicians work for us. We don't work for them. We need to start talking to one another. Whether you're left, right, center, I don't care. But if we don't, I fear for not my future, but my son's future. I truly do. And that's a very scary thought. As social media has been the proponent that's been truly pushing narratives and agendas, whether you guys want to admit it or not. I mean, there's two sides to any story. Of course there is. But when it comes down to politics, we stop caring about policies. We stop caring about civil discourse once again, but just having civil discussions and trying to learn from one another to make educated decisions on who to vote for. And if this is the best we could do in terms of candidates, I'm speechless. But you know as well as I do, if you're on the far right, you're not going to have a civilized discussion with someone that's on the far left. And vice versa. If you're on the far left, you're not going to have a civilized discussion with someone that's on the far right. Why? Why can't you just talk? Open up to one another. How are you going to solve a problem if we're not looking for solutions? We just kind of chalked it up as politicians have all the solutions per policies. That's not the way it works. And until we as people, as American citizens, start unifying and having civil discussions about serious issues serious issues that are actually being used to divide us. I promise you, okay. One particular person, once again, don't want to name his name. He is liberal. He will be voting for Biden. As well as my father, who is very, very Republican or conservative, however you want to, Democrat, conservative, liberal, Republican. These two particular individuals, they're older, of course. But when I see them sit down, and I've seen it many times, they could have a several-hour discussion about politics, and never once do they raise their voices. They never accuse either, each other of, being this way or that way. Where the hell did you come from? Well, it's the light, probably. But that's so rare, especially with my generation and the younger generation, leading up to my generation. Though I think we're definitely a different generation per labels. But yeah, if you guys want to know why I don't discuss politics, this is exactly why. And, saying, that I'm going to hopefully pray that our country gets through this. I don't see it happening. It's only going to get worse. It's divisive on both sides. And until we find a way to unify one another, which the only way that's even possible is through discussion. But social media doesn't give us, it gives us a platform for discussion. But any of you who use social media are well aware that that's not the way social media has panned out in terms of politics and political beliefs. You got everyone feels like they have some form of anonymity hiding behind a keyboard. Quite frankly, that's not the truth, guys. There's no anonymity in social media. But the perpetuation of these narratives that have been, they essentially stem from either party, but they really do stem from what we're fed through social media. We're told how to think. And that's what worries me, is when I ask people, could you tell me something, or could you tell me something that you disagree with about this particular politician? They never have an answer. That's truly terrifying. Because I've always been able, with any politician that I'm familiar with, if I start looking into it, I'll be like, oh, shit, I disagree with him on this, and this, and this, and this. They're not some form of saviors, people. And our country truly needs to find unity, and I don't see either one of these politicians doing it. And sadly, we're already at that point where it doesn't matter who wins. We are heading towards a dark path as a country as a whole. So, of course, this is just my opinion, so take it as that, but maybe this will give you guys a better idea as to why I don't discuss politics openly on social media. I believe it's toxic. I recommend you guys don't. I recommend you speak with your friends, your family, in person, and try to keep it civil. Don't let your emotions get the best of you. Try to understand where one another's coming from. At this point, I don't really see that fixing anything, because the divisiveness between the general narratives of both sides are becoming more and more split. And I don't see that changing. I actually see it getting worse over time. So I hate to have made this video, but yeah, that's just, I needed to get these thoughts out of my mind, so I've done so. I hope you guys are doing well. Of course, today is the debate. I am doing this very early in the morning. It is Tuesday, September 30th. So yes, the debate is today, and I'm going to have a good laugh. I will watch it, but I'll likely laugh, because I do believe I said back in 2012 that political debates have become somewhat of a circus, and they're, at least in my opinion, when I watch them, back when I watched them, it's comedy, it's satire to me. I can't take anything these guys say seriously. So, having said that, I hope you guys are just more vigilant about, how you interact with anyone in regards to politics. Take your emotions out of it. entirely, because that's what they want. Not they, but that's the way the system has just come into fruition. I've been watching this, once again, I've been watching this for many, many years, well over a decade, and that's why I decided to step back from it. This will probably be the only political discussion I will ever have, and it's not even a discussion, or a political video, rather. But yeah, try to take that into mind. Don't judge people based off of political leanings, because that's essentially what both parties are doing. And they're promoting division. And I see it, once again, on both sides, which, quite frankly, is scarier than shit. And believe me, I'm scared of shit. Like literal shit. I don't do well around shit. I have a weak stomach. Alright, guys. Anyway, have fun watching the debates. Hopefully, I was able to persuade you to start thinking for yourself, as opposed to just being told how to think and what to think. Especially when it comes to your fellow man. Whether it's your friend, your family, even your neighbor. We need to unify this country, and within this political climate, and with social media being so prevalent, this is literally, we are the modern day Rome, the Roman Empire, and I see this country truly falling apart due to division, as opposed to fixing it through unity, which isn't going to happen. But I see that happening in my lifetime. And sadly, that's something my son's going to have to live through. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the debate. I'm going to probably be laughing my ass off. We'll see what's going to be said. It's going to be very petty. It's going to be very, well, there's so many words I could use to try to, sorry guys, bruised ribs, laughing hurts. Yeah, there's so many ways I could describe how tomorrow's debate's going to make me feel. But yeah, to me, it's essentially just satire at this point. I'm going to watch it just for a good laugh. But yeah, I implore you guys to just start talking to one another. You're not going to find a solution to a problem if you're not trying to find a solution to a problem. It's as simple as that. And neither party has been doing that at all. So, well, that's my take on politics and why I simply don't discuss politics anymore. Sans with a few people. So, anyway, guys, just, take it easy. I hope you guys have a good day. Hope you enjoy the debate, as comical as it may be. But yeah, God bless. Peace.